the challenge, the opportunity to connect. The 1960s, a time of imagination and change, a time of anger and fear. The 1960s, a program called Challenge.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Looked at our connections, our divisions, through the lens of faith. Nearly 60 years later, during these challenging times, we'll take a new look at our divisions, our connections, in a new program called Challenge 2.0. The death of a teenager from bone cancer might seem to be an unlikely source of inspiration, but it has led to the establishment of a camp that has lifted the spirits of 35,000 young people and their families, each facing life-altering medical conditions. Camp Korey is an inspiring story of compassion, connection, and personal transformation, one that also offers lessons to families that may not be facing medical conditions, but are simply seeking ways to grow together, not apart. So we'd like to welcome two very special guests today to help us tell this story. Matthew Cook, who is the Chief Program Officer of Camp Korey, and Liz Thieker, who is the Director of Development for Camp Korey. Liz and Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, Jeff.
Well, let's begin by talking about inspiration. The program and the camp are so unique and so important. Let's look at the inspiration. What led to its founding and to the programs that you're doing?
The inspiration for Camp Korey and really all of the camps in the Serious Fun network of camps that was founded by actor, philanthropist, race car driver, Paul Newman, they're all very similar, and it had to do with a level of understanding about compassion. Newman's Own started back in '86, and they decided to give all their money away to charities that were serving mostly kids and sometimes kids with medical issues. And so that original inspiration came out of knowing that illness has the effect of isolating and depriving young people of what we consider to be the sort of the normal flow of childhood, right? And that has lifelong effects. And so Mr. Newman, being a sensitive and carefree and pretty mischievous kind of guy, his way of expressing that was to start a summer camp, the Hole in the Wall Gang camp, in 1988, where, in his words, what he hoped was that kids would have a chance to kick back and raise a little hell. And everybody understands the going to summer camp and raising a little hell kind of thing, but it was really the kickback part that the Hole in the Wall Gang camp originated. And now there are 30 camps around the world serving a pediatric medical population and their families. And so the work of Camp Korey was inspired by the story of the Rose family and Korey Rose, who dealt with his own childhood cancer and passed away at the age of 18. And his family, his dad, Tim Rose, is the founding person here at Camp Korey. He got involved with the idea of the camps for serving kids with cancer when he was involved with Newman's Own and with the Serious Fun Network. So that's where it came from, was from his experience of learning about the life-changing impact of camp for kids.
Matthew, you did an interview with Korey Rose's dad, Tim, talking about just that. And I think we're going to go to just a short clip of that where we hear him talk about the impact that has had and what led him to take the steps to make this possible.
Korey was just a great kid. He was loving life. He was always the joker of the family. Just was a great young man. And even all through his battle with cancer, he, was worried more about the family and worried more about his friends than he was himself. When he did leave, I went and visited a couple of hole-in-the-wall camps and knew right away that I just needed to bring a camp to the Pacific Northwest to help the children and families that went through what my family went through. After seeing Newman's Own and seeing what their beliefs were, and that Paul was personally involved with every product, we forged a great relationship.
As a parent myself, I know the urge to honor a child that is facing any sort of difficulty is powerful, but as I understand, the motivation for Mr. Rose went beyond just his experience with his own son and the loss of his son, but also with that sort of community of friends and acquaintances that they made while Korey was in the hospital. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
A very early sort of kernel of inspiration for Camp Korey came from a story that Tim shared with me that when Korey was in the hospital and he was in a room with another young man who was going through his own cancer treatment. Tim would come in, sometimes take the day off of work, or sometimes come in right after work, and he would visit Korey, and he often noticed that the other young man didn't have anybody visiting. And then one night he was there late. He was there about 9 o'clock, and he said that this other dad came in, and this other dad had taken three buses after work to make his way to the hospital to visit his son. And he hunkered down in a chair and spent the evening with his son, and then got up again at 5 a.m. and made his way back to the job site in order to get back to work. And the way Tim tells the story, it was a moment of understanding where not everybody has the understanding of what it is even to have a sick child, but also to be dealing with life in general outside of that. Tim said, there's got to be a way that we can help lift the burden and connect with families and give them an opportunity to connect as families, and also to help them support the growth and the development of their child who's going through such a hard time. And so that's part of the inspiration why Camp Korey is free of charge to everybody who comes. We don't want to lay any more burdens or any more barriers to families that are already dealing with so much.
As I hear you talk, Matthew, and Liz, in full disclosure, you and I have chatted briefly as well, I get the sense that this is more of a mission than it is a job. What drew both of you to take this career path, this direction with your lives?
From my own experience, when I first learned about Camp Korey and started working here, two things struck me. One was I learned how many children across the Northwest region and even across the US and around the world could really benefit from programs like what Camp Korey offers, providing this opportunity for kids with complex medical conditions to have this safe haven where they can come and they can feel completely supported the entire time they're here. But I was also struck by how many of our staff, board members, and volunteers either had a personal experience where they were the parent or loved one of a child with a complex medical condition, or they themselves were that child at one point. So that's something that has really spoken to my heart, is to see how many of kind of our staff and our inner circle here, and even former campers come back as interns, as employees, as counselors. That's something that really has, it inspires me every day.
Matthew, what about you?
Jeff, this summer will mark 30 years since I walked down the hole in the wall gang camp as a summer camp counselor. It was my first experience going to summer camp. I didn't go to camp as a kid. And I never felt more supported to do the best work that as Liz said, just pours out of your heart. It was a 100% fit, and it was 100% fit for me because we were meeting kids where they were at, kids who had struggled. And I had done some work with kids who had been part of the state system in Rhode Island, working in group homes with kids who'd been abused and neglected. And so being around that population and the traumatized sort of in that setting, it was when I got to camp, I recognized that camp too is dealing with the trauma of a childhood illness. But camp does this in a way where possibility is endless, and camp is a setting where it's the shortest distance between inspiration and execution. And we end up being able to say, imagine the greatest day of your life and now get ready to go live it, and so it also brought me to a really deep understanding that we're not just bringing kids to camp to have a good time. There's so much more that happens in this setting that that's sort of the byproduct of what goes on. And so it's been intellectually incredibly stimulating. It's been a joy. And people will say it must be hard to do that work, working with kids who are dealing with that kind of stuff. And the reality is that we have the fun job. We have the opportunity to create in a safe way the best day you've ever had. And it's a joy. The people that I look at, that I admire, are those medical professionals, nurses and doctors, child life specialists who deal with this every day in the hospital when it's the treatment that's going on and they're trying to take care of and save a kid's life. And if you really want to know who the heroes are, it's the parents that we get to know in this process as well. They're the ones that deserve our admiration.
That leads into the next question. We certainly have been talking about the youngsters that are coming to the camp, but your reach, your focus is much wider than just the youngsters. And I think that represents a bit of a revelation for you folks and a bit of a pivot. Can you tell us a little bit about that change?
In two ways. I think the first is that when the camp started, it was seen as a program for kids who are dealing with illness, for sick kids. They're coming to camp, and that was a shiny mission and one that made sense to people. Very quickly, what we discovered was that this kind of trauma-informed practice tells you that behind every child that's dealing with an illness is a family that's dealing with the crisis of that same illness. And so very quickly, when Camp Korey got started 16 years ago, the family weekend programs were on the list to add to the programming. And what you see, Jeff, is that as the child comes to camp and they experience the joy of and the freedom of coming to camp and being in this kind of environment, when you bring the family together, it's the same thing. You're bringing parents together who are looking across and seeing other parents that are dealing with the same stuff, and they're inspired and they don't feel so alone. Camp really develops a sense of belonging, and when you're isolated, we all have been dealing with and talking about the challenges of this pandemic and the isolation that it's caused for our families and our kids. The families that we serve have been dealing with this every day for years. And so to think of, the added layer, when they come to camp, and when we pivoted our program, because we can't have just kids sort of coming to camp as larger groups now during the pandemic, we pivoted into full family programming. So families could come together and we could keep them safely distanced from one another and do the activities that we do, show them that good time and the possibility of just play and laughter. That's been a wonderful pivot for us, and the outcomes from that have been really, really solid.
And it might be beneficial for us to offer a few reactions from some of your campers. And I think we have some video right now, and we're going to offer that up to watch and listen to for just a moment.
Camp Korey means lots of things to me. It's a fun camp that makes you believe that you can just do anything that you put your mind to. And I feel brave and strong, and I feel like camp always is there for me even when I'm not at camp.
Christine and I didn't have that growing up, didn't have something like Camp Korey, so it's really exciting for us to have that for Grace as she emerges and evolves.
So I was very happy that I got to come here again and see all my friends and see all the counselors.
You make friends and you have fun, and I feel happy, like I can just be myself at Camp Korey.
We're not different. We're part of the same thing, and we show pride that we are a part of Camp Korey.
As we look at this, obviously there's emphasis on having fun. Serious fun is, I think, part of the motto. But there's an added benefit that goes beyond having fun. Perhaps both of you could speak to that in what is that added essence that comes into it from bringing these people, these families, the kids together then?
The motto that I run by at camp is that camp is more than fun, right? Fun is a byproduct of creating a safe and playful, joyful, physical, emotional, social, spiritual environment. And so I think what we're sending our kids to camp to do is is to develop as human beings and to give them that opportunity to build relationships, to try new things, to develop independence and resilience, all the things that as we move across our childhood and we move from dependence to autonomy, and we internalize a locus of control where we're no longer just a victim of circumstance, but you're an actor on the stage of your life.
As you speak about the people that come in and assist, and you reference the medical professionals and other people, you have a wide range of volunteers. And Liz, I might talk to you a little bit and ask you to give us a little bit of perspective in terms of, is it a hard task to find volunteers, or is it a matter of just saying, we're pretty full right now? And tell us a little bit about that dynamic with the volunteers.
We are incredibly lucky to have a very supportive network of volunteers. The scope of everything that needs to happen here at camp to provide this amazing week for our campers and families. We try to break that down into its different components. So we have this incredible network of nurses, doctors, and other medical professionals who are here providing that support for our campers. They're sometimes at the forefront, sometimes in the background, just in case a camper needs them. But we rely on medical professionals who specialize in different maybe condition groups to come out. For example, mitochondrial disease, people who are experts in that area, sickle cell disease. But they come to camp and they give a week or a month or more of their time, and we're just incredibly grateful for them. And we're always looking for more assistance and more volunteer work. One of the coolest things about Camp Korey is that if a person wants to come out and volunteer for a day, we have a project for them. If they want to bring their entire company out, we've had groups of 100 to 120 people come out and bring their families and do everything from painting cabins, getting rooms ready for campers, plant trees, sew wish flags together. So there's so many opportunities for volunteering. There's always a need for more people. So we encourage anyone who wants to be part of this movement and be part of what we're doing here at Camp Korey to reach out to us, and we'll match you with an opportunity that will not only benefit our campers, but make you feel pretty good about what you're doing.
In preparing for this program, I went onto your website and I watched some of the videos that you've posted. And what really struck me were the reactions of some of the medical professionals. And I think we might just pause a second and just listen to a little bit of a response from, I believe, one of the physicians that comes out and volunteers.
I've been coming to Camp Korey for about 12 years now. I am the director of the Skeletal Health and Dysplasia program at Seattle Children's Hospital. The children that I take care of often have very complex medical and physical differences. And so when they're out in their regular world, they are singly different. And when they come to Camp Korey, they are uniformly the same. And it gives them an opportunity not to worry about how they're different or why they're different, but how they can just be kids.
One of the things that I think is such a wonderful byproduct is that it's not only that our kids come to camp and they have these wonderful experiences and they grow from those experiences. It's watching our summer staff, our 19 to 20 plus year old college students who come out to work here. It's our volunteers who show up from 19 to 75 years old, people coming out to give their time. It's our medical professionals who come out and what they experience and what they get to see is their normal view of a kid is that medical model. They're in the clinic, they're in the hospital.
Right.
And they're dealing. When they come out here, kids are running around and joyful. They're dealing with the same challenges, but they're laughing and playing. And for our medical volunteers to be able to experience that is, I know it's life-changing and affirming for them as well.
I think there's no question from what you've told us so far that there is an emotional burden that these families are dealing with and that you're helping them move through that. But there's also the financial aspect. Can you tell us a little bit about how Camp Korey, how you folks address that reality. And I know, Liz, that strikes at the core of what you do there. Maybe you can tell us about that aspect.
Absolutely, Jeff. We are committed to making sure that camp is 100% free for every family and every child that needs it. And that means a concentrated, nonstop year-round fundraising effort. That ranges from everything from people making individual donations, maybe a monthly contribution, in-kind donations. We have a wonderful partnership with Hasbro. They donate games and toys. But then we also have, folks in the community who are donating whatever they can to make a week or even a weekend for a family that much more special. We have events throughout the year, fundraising events that we welcome people to attend. They can sometimes participate in an auction and buy some items or a package that, again, all the proceeds help keep camp free for everyone. We have sponsors who sponsor everything from our grow auction in the fall to our Korey Classic golf tournament in June. We are participating in the New York City Marathon. So if someone wants to run to support Camp Korey, we have bibs available. They can contact us. But people get really creative with the way that they choose to support camp and be a part of this effort. Everything from someone going on social media and making a birthday fundraiser to we have a local Eagles club that has a golf tournament every year and they donate the proceeds to camp. We had a local church, their youth group decided to raise money for Camp Korey and donated those funds. So there's endless ways to support and contribute. And again, we just encourage people to reach out, come tour, find out more about camp, see what we do here, and find out ways that they can get involved.
As I listen to both of you talk, it strikes me that you have a very definite mission in terms of families, children that are dealing with life-altering medical conditions, but there are those families that face perhaps an isolated incident or just dealing with the issues of coming together after some difficulty in their family experience. And I guess, Matthew, I'd ask you, what lessons do you think this holds out that might be an example helping other families that are dealing with things other than medical emergencies? What might they learn from your experience and what you provide?
The generalized opportunity of the lessons from all of our camps over the last 30 plus years, what it really comes down to is that it's becoming part of a community. It's defeating the feeling of isolation and trauma is derived out of unpredictable and life-altering events or circumstances. And when you get to share that with other people and you can build community and a sense of belonging around those things, it really has an impact. I've had families come to me, Jeff, and say that it's that in order to join this community, you have to have a child with a life-altering medical condition, and that's hard. However, the path that they have been on and the belonging and the connections and the healing and the enrichment of their family, they wouldn't change a thing. I've had kids tell me, I'm glad that I got cancer so I could come to this camp. I'm glad that I have sickle cell disease so I can come to this camp. And it just leaves you scratching your head. But what it says is belonging is really what we long for. And so building belonging between the kids and the families that come to camp, regardless of the challenges that you're facing, really is the heart of what we're trying to do.
So perhaps part of the lesson for others that might not qualify for the camp by virtue of illness is that reach out, look for others that maybe are encountering the same experience that you are. And on the other hand, if you see somebody that's encountering an experience like that, reach out to them and create a connection. I guess I might ask that for anybody that's watching the television version of this or listening in the podcast version that says, gee, this sounds wonderful, which it is, what can I do to help? What would you tell them?
Jeff, one of our most pressing needs right now is capital and infrastructure, right? We already at the end of January for 2022, we have some sessions this year that are already full, and we have families on waiting lists.
Mhm.
We want to serve as many families as we can. And in order to do that, we have an ambitious capital expansion that's happening right now. We just built 14,000 square foot indoor recreational center.
Mhm.
We are putting the first 3 of our 10 new cabins on site. And we expanded our dining hall, but we have so much more that we want to do. And that's a wonderful way that people can get involved, is help us with that effort.
Well, I think people throughout Western Washington and beyond are counting on you to be there for a long time. I would thank you both so much, not only for being a part of this program, but for all that you do. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Really
Jeff.
appreciate the opportunity. Absolutely.
And for all of you watching, we thank you for joining us this week and hope you'll join us again next week for the next edition of Challenge 2.0. Thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this program, found our conversations to be informative, entertaining, and thought-provoking, and the vision inspiring of people from different backgrounds who can disagree without being disagreeable, perhaps you might consider supporting our program with a contribution. Your support will not only help our program continue, it will also support the broader efforts of Paths to Understanding, our supporting parent nonprofit organization.